Hey, everybody. Nice to see you all. How's it going?
All
Yeah,
good.
so happy. Whatever you have for breakfast, I want some.
I always like to see like the attendees pop in, and then I kind of name stalk and be like, oh, who's coming in, and be a little creepy. So it's always nice.
There you go. I like that. Welcome, everybody. We'll just wait like 1 or 2 minutes and then we'll get started. Let everybody start signing in. How are we looking? You want to get started? Why don't we just get this party started? Since everybody's starting to roll in. So I just want to start by saying welcome, everybody. And thank you for joining us today. I'm Sandy Cabellas, president of ASID New Jersey chapter. And I am really excited about our webinar today. Since COVID happened, let's say that happened, we've been forced to connect with each other in new ways. Instead of being together in person, which we used to do, to work together, to collaborate, we've really been forced to be creative and start to adapt and start to work together in new ways, mostly virtually, which I think why today's discussion is so important. And I'm really excited to have everybody here today, but to introduce our amazing panelists, I'm gonna pass it over to Terry Fiore. She's your incoming president, and she is the mastermind behind this great discussion today. So I'm gonna turn it over to Terry to introduce our panel. Terry?
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. I am so excited to introduce these amazing leaders in design today. Our moderator today is Kia Weatherspoon. Her firm is Determined by Design, and it focuses on making interior design a standard for all and not a luxury for few. Her presence and leadership, as well as her positive energy, have created ripples, prompting housing developers, agencies, and industry partners in economically challenged communities to not just take a notice of her work, but to do better. And on our panel today, so Kia, on our panel today consists of 3 ASID National Board Directors. First, we have Jennifer Kolstad. She's our 2020 chair. Since joining the National Board in 2016, her focus has been the broader application of the interior design professionals' human-centric expertise in every design equation. She's the Global Design Director of Ford Motor Company's Built Environment, where her role seeks to unify Ford's brand language across typologies through architecture and design. Then we have Carrie Kelly. Carrie Kelly is a fellow of ASID and our chair-elect of our national board. She's the founder of Carrie Kelly Design Lab, a Northern California residential interior design firm. She's an award-winning interior designer, author, contributor, product designer, and multimedia consultant, helping national brands reach the interior design market. Last but not least, we have John Cialone, a fellow of ASID and National's Director at Large. He leads a team of more than 20 professionals while managing operations at Chicago-based Tom Stringer Design Partners. His long list of contributions includes many board positions, including the ASID Florida South and the ASID Illinois chapter. So Kia, I am honored to hand over these impressive leaders over to you today, and take it away.
Oh, this is gonna be so fun. Terry and Sandy, they might have drank the Kool-Aid by letting me lead this amazing conversation with these great people. So I'm super excited. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna have fun and engaging and kind of candid dialogue. I encourage you to ask questions in the chat, but I think we have some dynamic folks here, and I'm excited to start this discussion around collaboration. And I think, one of the things that Terry mentioned was COVID, right? It's like the elephant that will not leave the room and take all of our masks with it. But I think we need to figure out how do we not just adjust right now, but think beyond COVID and this idea of how collaboration can really be a part of not just changing the design landscape, but changing the landscapes of our clients, our businesses, and communities. So I'm going to kick this off with our first question, and I think I'm going to start with Jennifer on this one. Is that fair, Jen? All right, let's do it. Okay, so Jen, why is collaboration essential in today's climate, all things considered, COVID and beyond?
Well, you started with me, so I get to hijack the question, right?
Yes.
Well, anybody who knows me knows that I love a big wicked problem, and a big wicked problem in science and research in science are those that seem insurmountable. They are the grand challenge. And so I think in this COVID state and moving into potentially a post-COVID state, we hope to get into a post-vaccine state at some point. All the variables around us are, what we would really roll up to a kind of an insurmountable challenge at the moment. Those types of challenges that we as interior designers or as designers in general cannot solve for on our own. We just can't. That's really the challenge around big wicked problems or meta design, which is that you need others to come in with you. So we need to bring with us certainly virologists. We need health experts to come to the table. We need those who will kind of lean into a future construct around probably anthropological considerations. What will the residual framework of human behavior look like in a post-COVID state? What will we learn? What will we kind of revert back to pre-COVID? So there's all this stuff that's additional to design, the physical output or the design solutions that we need to think through first before we get there. So I guess that's a long way of saying we're not going to come to design solutions on our own. I think that's probably kind of naive, when we're coming into a post-COVID solution. And so this, in and of itself is the definition of a collaborative mindset.
I love that. I love this idea of a big wicked problems. I have never heard a big wicked challenge. Let me get that right. You said a couple things that I want to throw to you, Carrie. She talked a lot about the future construct and humanistic behaviors, and not trying to solve all the problems right now, but allowing them to evolve. So, do you think that some of our historical models of collaboration, how we work both internally in our firms and externally, have created this kind of siloistic mentality that's kept us pigeonholed to collaborating outside of our normal teams?
I think we're discovering that we all need each other. I mean, if I'm supposed to be in quarantine, but I still need to build the house, there can't be any silos. And I remember back in the day at working for Del Webb, rolling up as the designer, walking into a house, and you could they didn't even know me, but it may be because I had red boots on or something, but that construction team could see me headed their way thinking that I was there to cause a problem. And truly, I was there to make sure the home was built correctly, and to collaborate and partner with them and understand what they were doing on behalf of our client to make sure that they had their beautiful dream home built. And so I think when we can be face to face with each other, whether it's virtually or those precious moments now where it's in person, where we can have those conversations and show our value and tell our side of the story in the design equation, those are the moments that we have understanding, and those silos can be broken down a bit. And for me, as a small design firm, I need those people as an extension of my business in order to get our work done. And I think that thought process can be applied to many challenges in the design industry, small or really large, if we take that approach.
I love that. I love that. John, would you say you agree with Carrie? How do you kind of create, I don't want to say inclusive, but more diverse teams in collaboration in this dynamic that we're in right now of COVID?
I definitely agree with Carrie. I think I could not do what I do every day without a huge group of people and the collaboration that comes with it, both my internal team that are, are my colleagues that I work with, but also all of our outside partners. And I think, the diversity aspect of it, many times a client hires my firm and they're looking to work with me or with Tom, my business partner, but many times they just hire the firm because they like the firm's reputation. And sometimes I don't really vibe, for lack of a better word, that client. Like I don't maybe get them. They're, what they're asking for is maybe something that is not familiar to me. And because we do a lot of different types of work, and having a diverse team on every project built for that project is really important to making sure the project, goes well. And that's like good design, good follow through, good communication with the client. And again, it may be different team members handling each part of that. So while I love to think of myself as the design ideator for all of our projects, in the end, really someone else is doing it. And it's usually the junior staff that it bubbles up from. And it's much better, frankly, because
Yep.
I've learned a long time ago, I'm certainly not the most creative person in every room. I'm usually just the person that really knows how to get it done. And so, a lot of times the junior staff is the one, bringing forth the best ideas. And that collaboration is, I think, what makes our projects so good. And there's one unifying thread for me, which is everything's comfortable and practical. And then, of course, it happens to look good and function well and, and hit all the other markers that make the project excellent.
I love that. So you're really saying it's your team that kind of allows you to do what you do. And I think, really acknowledging that it's your more junior staff. So would you say that the firm size matters? And I think I'm going to bookend this with you, Jen and John, two extremes, right? Ford Motor Company. How much of your more junior staff would you say creates this fresh collaborative perspective and ideation that John was talking about happens in his mid-sized firm? John, would you say you're a mid-sized firm?
Yes. Maybe large for a residential firm, but
okay, large for residential.
Mid-size
John
in terms
say.
of the real world of firm size, for sure.
Okay.
For me, it's definitely the junior staff. I mean, they're the teamwork. Again, it's all the staff, honestly, but the teamwork that comes from them. And a lot of times, again, the younger designers, like where I would say, I don't want to do that because we tried it before and it didn't work. Someone else is willing to bring that up. And then we could look at it with fresh lenses and go, okay, that might work on this project. I think that's an interesting take, because I'm always like the person that's like, if we've done it before and it didn't work, let's not do it. And that's like putting me in my box, and someone else might help me draw me out of that box. And again, I think that usually comes from the junior team, which is nice.
Jim, would you say you have that same type of freedom in a much larger firm of this, ideation from all parts of the hierarchy?
I'm actually thinking through this question while you're talking. So I've had experience in different kinds of large organizations.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to answer it in the context of a positive and a negative. I'll give examples of both. So I'll give a negative first, and then we'll level off with we'll leave you on a positive, because I know you like that. So one danger around collaboration, is really on the topic of culture. And I think it's changing right now because we're moving into a new space. But if there's a culture of hierarchy in place, for example, what is needed, to really create a truly collaborative environment is that everybody has a voice. So there's kind of a leveling off of hierarchy. I mean, I think we know this, but that everybody is given equal space and is able to, be vulnerable and offer opinion. That's what John's getting at, that, the most junior person in the room has an equal voice to the most senior person, which is John, and can challenge, can debate the point, and therefore collaborate, right? Then you get a great outcome. But in a really in a seasoned organization where there's potentially hierarchy in place, that might not be the case. And so, you know, a seasoned individual in the room kind of has the last laugh, has the say, and that's it. Everybody else kind of goes quiet. That's a potential obstacle. So no good. But, you know, I think organizations are changing now because they really want input from all, and they understand that creative ingenuity requires like true collaboration, which is that we all become vulnerable. We're all able to kind of like, you know, speak up and offer, you know, our voices. So this is like a radical cultural shift and behavioral change required by everybody. It's policy, really. It's a policy change.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. So now I'm thinking over to my experience at the Genslers and HKSs in the world, where I think that this is the positive, where just, you know, the experience of being in a large firm is about resources, where you just have great resources at hand and you've got great subject matter expertise at hand. So you can come together and collaborate. And, you know, people have perspective and they actually have like research. They just got good stuff to bring to the table. So the perspective there is being in a large firm or organization is a benefit because it's well resourced. So you should have the opportunity to collaborate.
So I think what I heard there was, you know, in this large firm environment, it takes a lot more vulnerability, right, to allow everyone to have a voice and to kind of collaborate, and then utilizing the resources within. You know, is there the challenge with, you know, how do you maintain your voice in a moment of being vulnerable? And I'm gonna ask you to pick that back up, Jen, and then Carrie, I'm gonna also ask you, you know, how do you maintain your voice when you're collaborating? And, you know, if it does ever require a moment of vulnerability to allow for an organic collaborative experience, whether it's your team, your contractor, or your GC, can you maintain your voice and be vulnerable at the same time? Ladies.
I really, so this is a personal answer now. I believe one of the most that we can do as leaders in this profession and just as leaders is to say, I don't know the answer. I think that demonstrates true leadership on the topic of, you know, collaborative thinking, because it creates space for others to come in and answer the question, for others to join in.
And piggybacking on what Jen said, that also involves letting go. And I remember doing some model homes and having the director of merchandising coming from Detroit into California, and I'm arranging accessories, and she's like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, this is what I do. And oh, no, this is not. And I mean, this was what, almost 20 years ago, but this is not, in your position, this is not what you do. You have people that know how to do this, and you need to let that go. And over the years, that's letting go of your accounting, letting go of some of your marketing, letting go of these things to let people who are excellent at that do that and elevate your business. And you do what you're good at, which isn't CAD for me. It is landing the client, making sure they're happy, overseeing the install. It's not lifting the sofa on my back. It's pointing to the delivery team exactly where it goes and have it, but that takes time. I've been doing this for over 25 years. And I think you learn those things. And when you let it go, like Jen is saying, those other voices are heard and they get to have the light shined on them with their expertise. And it's just all around benefits everyone. But sometimes we hold on to things so tight because it's ours or our name's on the building or whatever that may be. And it's hard to do.
So would you say, and this is, I'm gonna loop Lynn Kitson's question in here. Would you say letting go allows you to be more efficient? And then she also wants to know, what are some tips for being more efficient in the collaborative process? And I'm going to have Carrie and John jump on that question.
the only way you can be more efficient is to let it go. And I know you want to have your hand on everything and know everything, but those people get to report to you. It's just like our board setup. We're not pretending to be excellent at diversity and inclusion and all the hot topics of the workplace. And, I don't pretend to know what Jen does. I tap into Jen and she reports to the board because she's the expert in that. And so we're blessed to have all this brain trust of people that we can tap on and learn for ourselves, but maintain our same voice. And that's having the right people in the right place who have been around you long enough to understand that.
I love that. I love that. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this one's really key for me because I am just so not a time waster, and I just get very frustrated when things aren't moving efficiently. So I don't
know why, but I can see that about you.
This is my favorite question of the year, maybe. I think one of the ways that I like to handle this is, well, so first of all, let me just go back 1 second. I think what Jennifer said about the negativity of collaboration can be, for me, it can be compromise, where each person gets a piece of what they were trying to get, and there's not a common outcome. So I think in terms of being efficient with collaboration, the idea is for everyone to agree upon the goal in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what we're trying to do. And again, pick your topic. Choose a new CEO for ASID. Get a project done at XYZ. Pick your goal and make sure everyone is on the same page. And then you have to realize you have to respect everyone's opinion, actively listen. I think these are things to make it efficient, because when everyone really is hearing what's said, then the collaboration can happen quickly. And instead of having 9 meetings about something, you could have 1 or 2 and really come to a head. And I think summary is really important and powerful too, because I think the quicker we can move to agreement in collaboration, the better it is in terms of getting something done.
Right now?
So,
no.
Yeah, John,
So
an amazing point, actually. So, what we're talking about right now is traditional models of business practice that just, frankly, have not been super awesome. So, when we're working through this right now, we've just touched on making space for others. So, demonstrating our own vulnerability and saying we don't know everything, which is kind of major. This was not the tradition of business where we had alphas in the room sort of owning the space. When you showed vulnerability historically, you didn't promote, right? If you didn't know everything, you didn't promote, And so we had the loudest voice in the room, moving up and through. The other thing had to do with holding the information. Whoever held the information was the supreme being as a traditional working model, right? Now, to be an excellent collaborator, you have to do what? You have to share everything. It doesn't work unless there's total transparency and everybody knows the same thing. This is a radical shift in working. So, those are 2 things I hope everybody realizes here.
So do you feel like, and I think this idea of transparency, small, big, large firm, right now, I'm really transparent with my team about where we are financially, so they can make sure they understand. But I think what you're saying is that, collaboration right now, we have to be vulnerable, we have to be transparent, and that's what's literally happening. I saw Casey Keeler, I saw your hand. If you want to type in your question, that'd be great, and I'll make sure I'll get to it. Joanne Alston has a question. What about collaboration with others outside of your own firm to generate business for both firms? Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Who wants to jump in on that one before I do?
You should, Kia.
This last few months because, in part of marketing our firm and also just finding the right partners for new projects, there's been this great opportunity of time, maybe not because we've been on more Zoom calls than ever but there's just, it's really allowed me to have a lot of interaction with other people. And I had an amazing call a week ago with a design build firm that realizes they honestly aren't good at interiors, and they sort of have had that in their pocket for a long time, and they just really needed a new partner, and all they really wanted to hear about was our collaborative efforts. Like, what do we do? What do we bring to the table? And I think it was very powerful, frankly, just to have an open conversation. And I'll also say, when just going back to the efficient collaboration point, just quickly, we spend a lot of time, we spend a lot of money, company money, however, if it's your own or, your own, Kia, because you own your own business, or me, or Jennifer works for a huge corporation who's, and she's in charge of big dollar budgets. But like I think the most important part of what comes from collaboration is we have to if we're not efficient, we don't increase morale. Or better said, we are efficient, we increase morale. And that part is like the key resource, because, resources used to be like time and money, right? They would say talent, which I hate that word. The staff, those were the resources, but the resource really is morale. And if we're efficient in what we're doing, I think we build morale. And I think that's just so powerful in terms of why, like, no one ever leaves my firm. Maybe they're all too well paid, but no one ever here, because I think we have generally a good morale, a good family atmosphere, and we are efficient. And I think that helps people want to be part of the team. Anyway.
If they're well paid, you must be efficient.
Right. So wait, I wanna jump in on this question. I lost it. I think it's how do you collaborate with others outside of the firm? So Joanne, for me, we're a small practice. We collaborate with big architectural partners, and one of the things that I've had to learn is their ego needs to be bigger, right? So I let their ego be bigger at all times. So when I'm approaching these larger architectural firms, and sometimes my small to mid-time architectural partners, for me, the good collaboration, and it's going to sound so like low-hanging fruit, it starts with a phone call that's not about a task, a thing, a deliverable, but let's just set the tone. Let's understand each other's business models, how we utilize our resources, which are the people, right? For me, the resources is the people, but it starts with relationship building, especially in this COVID environment where everything seems to, like, I got to get it done. I got to get on the Zoom. I got to pause, just build that relationship. So some of our architectural partners, where it starts out as all this tension and ego, right now, I think we all need each other in a much greater way, that it allows us to remove some of those egotistical barriers that might exist. And it's becoming more advantageous for both my business and their business, but remove the ego, approach it not with a thing. That's what I would say, Joanne, about collaborating with outside firms. If that doesn't answer your question, jump back in the chat. We have another, okay, Casey was able to pop in her question. From a perspective of a junior member, what facilities cooperation and promotion within your cooperation and promotion within your company? What facilitates cooperation and promotion within your company when your team is separated these days? Ooh, so I think her question is, how do you get promoted how do you get to shine when no one can see what you're doing nowadays? And you should go to work for John, Casey, because he pays well.
I think, like, showing, for me, here's, like, if we're talking about, like, literally evaluating employees in this way, I love the employees who are the gung-ho, get it done, how much more can I do? Here's more information they requested, but I think this will help you make your decision kind of thing. And I do that, I'm the junior owner of this business. So my business partner, Tom Stringer, owns the majority. If Tom and I are conversing about something, I think, like, how many solutions can I give him so that he can make the appropriate decision, like, make it easier? Because I want to be a good employee with him too. Technically I'm an employee as well, even though I'm an owner. And I think, like, thinking about what that person's going to want from you and anticipating a little bit is really key right now.
Mm.
And again, I don't want people to spin their wheels unnecessarily, but at the same point, the most valuable employees to me are the ones who communicate effectively. Sometimes I call that overly communicate, but communicate effectively, like with a lot of information, because then I'm just really empowered to make a decision and move on. And that's good for me. And again, we're writing off a lot of time right now in terms of time billing. My company bills, like attorneys, we bill by the hour at a sliding scale for every employee. But I would rather have 6 people in on a meeting so we don't have to repeat it 6 times. And then we're, like Jennifer said, we're all sharing information than not have that. And so I can't always bill 6 employees for a meeting. I might be able to bill 2 employees. And so again, I'd rather include them all and just write off the time just so that everyone feels like they're part of the team. And that's important, I think. And then it allows the junior members to really feel connected and also be making good decisions. I think that's important.
Jennifer, were you going to jump in on that? I saw you lean in there.
No, like in everything COVID, I've got, these error message popping up on my screen right now. But I'll jump in since I'm now.
Come on, girl.
I would say during this COVID moment, we did not skip a beat. Our projects didn't slow down, and our internal and external folks, dedicated to the project work. So that's World Headquarters, the new campus for Ford, and train station in Detroit, and a bunch of other stuff. The design teams didn't miss a beat. I mean, they modified their working strategy and, took it digital and went to like Material Bank with Sandow. I always plug them because they seem to have like saved us all. But they just sort of they figured it out. It's kind of what John is getting to. They modified strategy and kept on going. And it was very creative in how they solved the problem. What can I do? How can I take an in-person charrette onto a media platform? So we started using, Bluescape and Miro and all of these other media applications to experiment and see what was most effective. And, to answer the question that was asked directly, I can tell who is, really overperforming and very productive right now. Doesn't matter if we're in person or virtual, and never mind that we're having conversations multiple times through the day. So it's not like we've lost touch. The team is extremely connected.
I love that. And I think that point, it's not whoever sent the most emails that day did the most work and they need to be recognized. It's what are the tasks? Were you efficient? For me and our team, I love it when, we're not really big on hierarchy here, but when one of our design advocates says, first thing in the morning, hey, I knocked all this out last night, and she's just eager to show what she's done, to me that says, and I think, because people aren't in the office and we can't see what you're doing, I think to be recognized as a more junior person, this is where your integrity has to shine, and your execution of tasks and deliverables is really how you're going to stand out. And to John's point, it's like having a plethora of information, like here's more. I think that's how you shine right now if you can't visibly be seen. We have another question from Sandy Cabellis. How do you collaborate with your team virtually? Can great ideas be saved for a scheduled Zoom time, or should we be more flexible? Ooh. Carrie, I'm gonna pick on, you're right here on my screen.
That's fine. It's interesting. Every student that comes to us graduating asks the question of what's your advice for me? And it's always been be flexible. So my team knows that. And I feel like over this period of time, those relationships have deepened among us. We really feel like we all have each other's back because there's so many versions of how we're answering clients and such. So how do you collaborate with your team virtually? We do this, we do text, we do phone call, we do FaceTime, and then we put on masks and we get together and knock it out. can great idea just be saved for scheduled Zoom time, or I think you should be more flexible, but have those contained thoughts, like hit the bullet points, like with your great idea, and have it well fleshed out, well thought out. And if you need time to have a deeper conversation about it, that's okay too. That flexibility has always been key for our team. And to be successful, whether it's an economic downturn or COVID or whatever, to be able to bob and weave, I feel like that's one of our strengths.
John, any comments on how you can collaborate more with your team virtually and be more flexible?
Yeah, I mean, I think we, I think this sometimes is a joke, but a lot of times people call us interior problem solvers. I think as interior designers, we're very attuned to figuring out, like, here's the end goal, here's where we are, here's the steps we need to take to get that, right? Like, that's just very natural to our process. And I've not seen most of my staff since March in person. I mean, there are a few here. So there's 20 of us. There's 4 people in the office today. I'm in my office. But for the most part, I haven't seen very many of them. We're doing a lot of these Zoom calls, obviously, or whatever format you want to say, those kinds of calls. We're also texting a ton. And I think we shouldn't wait for great ideas, because, and maybe this is just because I'm a decision maker, but a lot of times when a great idea comes to me, like through a text, like, hey, I think we should, or here's a challenge. We have a 52-inch wide fabric, but the chaise is 54 inches wide and we need to change the chaise width, right? Like something really specific. It just happens instantaneously. Great, change the chaise width. Like there's no reason to wait another 5 days until we all meet again. So I love that process. And I think we were doing that before, honestly. And maybe more so now because I'm not on the road nearly as much. I would spend 4 days on the road every week for the last 5-6 years. They're actually able to get me more. So even though they're not physically having more FaceTime, we have more FaceTime virtually. And I think they probably don't like it, honestly. I mean, nobody wants to have a Zoom call with me, but I think, it's been good in terms of getting me on the phone kind of thing. So I say, reach out when necessary. Even though we have a scheduled set of calls every week internally, people should just make it happen, especially if it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So in everyday life, I am super, super flexible. But I think right now, it needs to be scheduled. Because there's so many things coming at us: meetings, dings, email, a FaceTime, a text. We use Asana for like our project management and communication. So Sandy, a lot of times I do tell my team, schedule some time or put it in Asana and I'll see it. And I think I do that because it gives them, it empowers them to tell me when they need me, right? We have to be a little bit more protective of our time right now. And I hate to admit that, but I don't need another ding. I don't need another ding. I don't need another text or a chirp or whatever. I would go insane. One of the things that we did start doing last week was, we'll have our morning call. We do a morning check-in, and then no one hung up. So we just sat there, all had our cameras on, and I think that was a great time for us to just kind of engage informally. But I try to keep things a little bit more scheduled, and I'm normally not that person. But that's what we're doing. Yeah, for me, yeah, I feel like I feel a little guilty saying I'm not as flexible right now, but it works. It works. I'm for a few more questions, and I want to thank you guys for your questions. Please, Sandy. Oh, thanks for the smiley face. I'm a graduate student trying to reach out to interior designers to complete a survey. Which advice do you give me to get designers to respond? That's simple. Email them multiple times. Email all the people on this Zoom call right now multiple times.
That's a hard one. Good luck with that. I actually
You
love.
think so?
I think I love a good survey personally, so I love to answer it. But you know, like what our response rate is in general and in the world in general for that kind of stuff. I'm not sure what the survey is regarding, but I think the person really wants to target their audience. So if they're doing something on healthcare, find healthcare designers. You know, you'll get a higher response rate if it really means something to them. And again, if it's more general, I think your tagline has to be engaging, like, you know, make a difference or help me complete my thesis or whatever. I think that kind of thing would, you know, would make me want to read it more, honestly, if the tagline was engaging.
Jen, Carrie, thoughts on that?
I'm a serial unsubscriber, but I do love a student, and we're always happy to help. I like to keep things tight around here, but we're happy to help. And I think when you spell the person's name correctly and act like you actually know who they are when reaching out, and just have some personalization to it, like John's saying, or something intriguing in that RE line, you're going to have a much better success rate.
Okay. I'm a sucker. I think I feel for students in this climate. So if I saw it, I'm like, you know what, let me give them a little bit of time. Because I know they're in a really tight spot, job hunting and being in school in a pandemic. So yeah. Hey, Susan Globus, good to see you, girl. Sorry, I got a little too excited there. So Ebitho, I'm going to butcher your name, but if you want to email me, I'll do your survey.
We all will, I'm
Susan,
sure. Tell us you're a student.
Yeah.
Email me as well. I'll put my email address up.
The illustrious Susan says, how do you recommend prospective employees contact you regarding job opportunities in this climate? Whew. Ooh, that's a tough one. So we're going to kick that one off.
I'll tell you, because I've done this all since March. I've had so many of these calls of people seeking internships or people seeking real employment, people who've been laid off and need jobs who are super talented. I think it's, if you can figure out someone else that knows the person, you need a connection. I think a connection, it goes a long way. And if somebody said to me, and again, it doesn't have to be direct. You could just, you know, if the student emailed and said, I know Jennifer Kolstad and she said you'd be a good contact for me in Chicago. Can I talk to you? I would schedule a call in a second to do that. I think the connection helps. So for me, and again, if you don't have that, if it's really a cold call, I think it could be something as simple as this. And again, I would give my time to do this because I'm also a sucker for students. I think that's Carrie just said. I really like that. And I think what you could easily do is say, hey, I just need 15 minutes of your time for a, what's the term for an interview that's not going anywhere?
Informational interview.
Informal.
An informational interview. I would do that in a minute. And Susan, because I love you, you can have 20 students email me and I'll do it for all of them. It is. I can tell you some of the best team members here I have met through ASID student members. So like, I mean, some really incredible employees. I think there's probably 6 here that I know through ASID. And I would not be as fortunate as I am with this amazing team without those connections. So it's equally beneficial to me. And I think you could say that, like, I might have a talent that you could use. Can you give me 15 minutes?
Yeah, we've created positions in our firm because of a warm introduction, like you're saying, and someone knowing a bit about what they're asking for, which is how they relate to our firm and why it would be a benefit. We've created a position out of nowhere. We didn't even know we needed it because of that person and the thoughtfulness that was put toward the ask in the first place.
Jennifer, I saw you unmute yourself. You want to chime in here?
I'll add to this that I bet you all are not aware that any students on the call or on the panel are not aware that we actually share portfolios. I mean, across firms. So we're sort of on the lookout for one another too. You know, like we're all a network of people, and we know what one another is up to, like in terms of special projects or, you know, research projects, or, you know, you at this firm are leading a studio that's really focused on computational design, or over here you're really focused on healthy outcomes or something. And so we will sort of hoard portfolios or talent and then share it across to our colleagues. There's a whole exchange of information and talent that is happening in the background. So we will interview over here and then actually share to a colleague over there. So it really is critical to introduce yourself even during this time and do these informational interviews, because I mean, it just happened 2 days ago for me and my husband, who's an architect at HKS, where he held on to a resume for me, knowing that I've got a project coming even a year out that would be of relevance. So we have others in mind. So I think there's a bigger picture that's happening that could work to your benefit.
I love that. And I'm going to add a little bit of tidbit before we get to your question, Joseph. Hey. For me, this goes back to similarly what I said to Joanne, right? I'm telling a lot of students, stop trying to get the job, try to build a relationship. And if you're attending some Zoom, you should put a handwritten note in the mail. That's going to come across a lot different than email number 215 that day. Look for longevity in your interactions with people. Not here's my resume, hire me. I do that with potential architectural partners, potential developers. I've been slowing down and looking for more humanistic approach. I get it, it's a pandemic, you need a job, you gotta pay your student loan debt. But the long-term play is truly relationship building when it comes to collaboration and building your career. Joseph's question is, as there are various travel and COVID protocols state by state, how do you collaborate with a broader team on a project in a different location without being physically on site? Great question. Who wants to take on that for Joseph?
Cialoni just flies there.
I have been on the road a little bit, but I'm going to give you, there's many of these things available to us as designers, but our firm uses one called Matterport. If you're not familiar with it, it's 3D modeling and imaging. They put a camera in a room, it spins, and we do it on some projects weekly. And it's a great way for us to see an entire project, literally framing, plumbing, electrical, without being there. And we've been doing this since before COVID, but this is an amazing tool, and I highly recommend everyone checking it out. And there are others. It's not the only one. It's come down.
Could you put the link in the chat, John? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's not inexpensive, but it's much cheaper than it once was. But again, Joseph hi Joseph, by the way, with technology, I feel like we're able to be really connected with other partners, and I work all over the country. I have one project in Chicago right now. Everything else is outside of Chicago. So I am doing this all the time. And instead of those site meetings I would fly to every week or once a month or whatever it was, I'm doing them virtually. And again, it's sometimes as easy as a FaceTime call. Again, I think this is like a no-brainer. And sometimes it's more complicated with, someone holding a laptop or an iPad, walking around a space. But we're doing team meetings virtually. And honestly, I think it will allow me to be more efficient in the future when we're out of COVID, because I figured out that we can do it. Even though I never really wanted to do it, I sort of like getting on a plane. But I think we can be more efficient, and we'll also save the clients money and possibly time, because sometimes they were waiting 3 extra days before, for instance, they put up drywall so that I could do an electrical walkthrough. And like, as a real specific example, that one happens a lot. And because I'm coming on Monday, but they could have started on Thursday with drywall or something like that. And now they can just be like, I need an hour of your time on Thursday at 4 so we can start drywall on Friday. And so, there are some things that are really hard to see without being in person. And I really love a good site visit, and I love site meeting collaboration, because I think one of the things that was always hard by phone when you do it via conference call, Zoom has changed this, is you can't see people's expressions. So when you say, I'm going to paint the wall purple, or I want to have, 5,000 K LED lighting, and people are like, what are you talking about? You never got to see it on their face before. And now with Zoom become so popular, and again, I don't care, I'm not trying to promote Zoom, but we're able to read people's features, and I can say, oh, they agree with me, or I can see they're questioning that, like they're not on board with that thought process. So I love face-to-face, and I think Zoom has really helped us all.
So I will say I started traveling again because there were some things you just couldn't do face-to-face. But I've also used it as an opportunity to elevate some of my more junior team members. Our team has always been remote. So we have team members in Philly and Boston, and we're looking for one in Chicago. But on our Boston project, we let our more junior team member do more client-facing meetings, and that empowers them to kind of, take a leadership role in interacting directly with the client. So if I can't physically be there, but to John's point, you can't do a DD in my world, a DD presentation virtually anymore. I wanted to have that interaction. So I did get COVID. I did all the precautionary things before I traveled, but I also really try to rely on my team. I think in this vein of collaboration, it's leaning on everyone, and especially when you're in a leadership role, it's really great when you don't always have to be the front-facing person to your client. That's really letting go, but that's how we've really been harnessing collaboration. We're coming up on our time here shortly, so I just want to kind of check for any last-minute questions in the chat. And then I think, I want to, maybe go around the virtual room and tell me one thing we can all do better going forward to achieve our goals via collaboration in this climate.
For me personally, I'm working on having a little empathy.
Good one, Carrie, good one.
Just because you're rolling along and doing business as usual in a moment doesn't mean everyone else is. And doesn't mean that, just accepting certain reactions along the way or emotions along the way from people, and understanding that, there's a lot of different situations going on right now, and we need to be empathetic to what that looks like. And, while Jen seems really close to me here, she's in Detroit and John's in Chicago, and I think you're in DC. I don't know where you are now. We're all over the place, and people are spread thin and have kids trying to learn remotely, and it's stressful. And so just to take a minute and think, well, maybe I can imagine what they're going through, and bring it down a couple notches.
Ooh, Jen and John, you guys are going to have to follow that one up.
Well, I'll fully agree with Carrie, and I was going to say the same thing in that for me, like the number one thing is putting yourself in someone else's shoes right now, because I don't have children. My dog is my child, and he's generally easy. And like all these people who are trying to juggle their job responsibilities, their spouse, their partner, and their children is a real challenge. And I realize maybe how easy I've got it with just one giant child, my spouse, and one little child, my dog. And I think if you just put yourself in someone else's shoes, and I know that leads back to the empathy thing. And for me, it's a huge, always a huge goal. I always have to remind myself, like, hey, they may not have the same situation as you. They're not going to read this email at 10:37 at night, And I think that's just about being fair and kind. And I think I would say, be kind, put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Jen, one thing we can do, close us out.
So my lessons since March 16th, when we went home and learning new tools, is really being very careful about the words that I'm using. And frankly, the lessons of this absolutely critical social justice moment are furthering this lesson. So I'm learning that just basic language that we as designers use, like the word innovation, or even this word collaboration, or words like workplace or open office, or there's so many words, are not the same thing for the same people. And so I think we're not only are we in this catalytic moment, but we're in a moment where there's a total shift in our lexicon or a reset. And we just have to be very careful about the words that we use when we're describing our work and moving forward. So I'm just consciously trying to choose my words carefully, or provide definitions when I use them.
I love that. Language and empathy are key to collaboration. Wow, I like it. Way to close this out, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to throw this back over to Terry, and I think she has some closing remarks. But thank you all. Virginia, thank you. This was fun. We're glad it was inspiring. And it was our pleasure to share our time with you today.
Thank you so much, guys. That was awesome. It's so funny, Kia, because at the end I was going to like sum up all of my notes, because I have a ton of notes. It was great, but just like my takeaways were but be flexible in these days. Be sympathetic, be empathetic to other people's what they're going through at this time. I think it's really key. And then just building relationships is just so important. And ASID is a really big part of that. So thank you for that. This was awesome.
Thank you all.
Having us.
And then thank you guys. Thank you, Terry, for putting this all together. This would not have happened without your efforts and your vision. So thank you, Terry Fury, so much. This is amazing. And thank you so much to our panelists for joining us. Kia, you have an unbelievable, amazing energy. Can you please put it in a bottle and send it to me? I would really appreciate it. And John.
I got you covered, girl.
And John and Carrie, Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing your time as well as your wisdom and your great advice with all of us today. I hope that everyone was inspired. I know that I was. I'm taking notes about being vulnerable and flexible and empathetic, and those are some great takeaways from today's conversation. So thank you again. And so in closing, for anyone who didn't get to join us today in person, we will be posting this on our YouTube channel, so you can see it again, or you can share it with your colleagues, and hopefully we can all be better for it. So again, thank you so much to everybody. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Thank you, Carrie.